Section 14 of Stanton White, A Romance of the New South, by Asa Zadel Hall. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 14. Lead, Kindly Light. The days that followed were full of interest for me. While Stanton was busy tutoring the young ladies, Mr. Edson and I made short trips to surrounding places of interest. One day we went to see Florida's famous live oak, a tree 18 feet in diameter. The next day we returned with a sprig from the great hickory tree, the largest in the world. The natural wells, a series of bottomless reservoirs, were next visited. And then we made exploring trips down the neighboring bayou or into the adjoining forests. And many were the rare bits of natural scenery discovered. Upon one occasion, when Mr. Edson was busy writing letters, I started out alone to hunt rabbits. For nearly an hour I chased a large rabbit from one clump of scrub palmettos to another without getting a shot at it. Finally, upon emerging from a thicket, I caught a glimpse of the rabbit just as it disappeared in a dense forest of large trees. Dashing across the intervening clearing, I was soon at the forest. It was denser than I had supposed, but I pressed on for a few steps, then paused in terror. At my very feet, a single step distant, opened a chasm. Grasping a sapling for support and clinging to a jutting rock, I was able to descend almost to the brink of a clear sheet of water that had been hidden from view by the overhanging crags. Thence I clambered up to a large fragment of phosphate rock, which projected far over the water and commanded a view of the cavern. The formation of the cavern was irregular in the extreme. The gray phosphate rock had been worn into the most bewildering shapes. Towers, pinnacles, pillars in grotesque and varied forms reached back into cool caves far beneath the overhanging sides. The clear water lapped monotonously against the roughened edges of its prison house, and rippled back again 150 feet to the other side of the cavern. Now and then cooters would lift their brown shells above the surface of the water, and I amused myself by shooting at them. The echo would resound round and round the little cavern, the crack of my rifle, the sound of the bullet on the cooter's shell, and then a thud as the glancing missile buried itself in the soft rock. At first the sound was deafening, but gradually decreased in volume until there was but a reverberating murmur ending in unbroken silence. Immediately the cooter, alarmed by the shock, would descend to the ragged phosphate bottom, a score of feet below the surface. This cavern became a favorite resort for Mr. Edson and myself in our subsequent rambles. If I was interested in the natural scenery that we discovered, I was more interested in the change I saw taking place in the companion of my travels. I had believed Mr. Edson to be sincere when he declared his intentions on that memorable evening, but I had expected that the conflict would be on for some time before the old temptation would seem to lose power. In this I was mistaken. The light of determination never died in Mr. Edson's eyes, but there was present also the light of a new confidence, a sort of afterglow of victory. Day after day, Mr. Edson seemed to be further removed from the level on which his first battle was fought. He seemed to have gone above it into new regions where conflict was not unknown, but where he carried with him confidence gained from former combats. I could only look and marvel. Mr. Edson talked freely of the things that we both saw, but I could easily see that there was a deeper current of thought which was sweeping him along irresistibly toward some ocean-like expanse of resolution and purpose. It was only natural, therefore, that before a week had elapsed since we began our rambles, Mr. Edson voiced some of his pent-up thoughts. We were passing through a forest of grand old oaks and magnolias, when he finally exclaimed vehemently, "Edson, I say it's a shame that I've been so selfish in my attitude toward education here in the South. I've spent the most of my life here. Here I've raised my family, and I've been living to myself and planning for myself all this time while public morals might rot and the public weal be ignored for all that I have done. I wish that I might do something to improve our educational facilities. Here I've been talking about sending my daughters to the North for their college training, while my less fortunate neighbor will have to rest content with the backwoods facilities which are afforded nearer home. I believe that I'll interest myself in inquiring just what those facilities are, and whether anything at all is being done to improve them. As for you, have your plans for the future yet taken definite form?" "Yes. 3 weeks from now I want to be at home to replace the unfaithfulness of the past by the devotion of the future. I do not know yet what work awaits me, but I hope that the one who gave me to see my duty will direct me in performing it." "No doubt of that," cried Mr. Esson heartily. Thus sped the forenoons, and of much profit they proved. But I found myself continually looking forward to the cool of the afternoons, or to the delightful evenings spent upon the piazza, when, with lessons prepared and household tasks performed, the young ladies gave themselves up whole-heartedly to recreation. During these times I found myself much in the company of Miss Zoe, while Stanton seemed as naturally to seek the companionship of Miss Irma. I had plenty of opportunity to study the two sisters at my leisure. I found that Miss Zoe was of a vivacious nature, keen-witted, sensitive, sprightly, and resourceful. Though versatile and impulsive, her judgment was usually reliable and her powers of intuition marvelous. Miss Irma was of fuller flesh and larger frame, and while unfailingly cheerful and astoundingly self-controlled, she was at the same time capable of the utmost sympathy and gentleness. She had withal that indefinable something called charm, which gave to her every action a queenly grace, and to her words something of unusual import. In comparing the two faces, the one fitful, changing, enveloped in a cloud of dark hair, and the other sweet, serene, encircled with a golden halo, I likened them to 2 days, the one in April and the other in June. Somehow I liked April weather the better. The first Sunday after the funeral found the whole Esson household at church. It was a quaint old meeting-house, the one in which Mr. Daniels performed the office of under-shepherd, a white-painted building with lofty spire and high stone steps. The pews were high-backed and narrow-seated. The pulpit was a high box reached by a spiral staircase, and the choir held sway in the old gallery at the rear of the building. Though we were early in arriving, the room was already comfortably filled, and a subdued buzz told that the preliminary gossip was already in evidence. Many a pair of critical eyes rested upon our group as it entered, with footfall resounding loudly along the bare floor. Then we were seated, 4 in a pew. But where was Stanton? Ah, he must have foreseen the inconvenience of 5 sitting in one short pew, and have lingered behind seeking another sitting. Then the organ began. Sweet, simple, soul-stirring chords they were, rising in volume and depth of feeling until the room was vibrating with melody. Soul after soul had kindled with the theme, and at the majestic notes of the doxology the audience rose as if moved with one impulse, while the music which burst spontaneously from every throat seemed likely to lift the rafters by its very exuberance. The lesson of the morning was taken from Isaiah's life. I listened with unusual interest while the pastor explained the words, "Here am I, send me." "This chapter is the record of Isaiah's call," said Mr. Daniels. "I want you to notice how the call came about. First, Isaiah had a vision of God's holiness, vividly contrasting with his own unfitness for work. Accordingly, he prayed for purifying. The prayer answered, there came a vision of Israel's need. God didn't say, 'You must go and give Israel help.' He'd much rather Isaiah would volunteer. That is the way God calls men today. He first helps a man to purify himself. He then shows the man the need of bringing that same purity into the lives of others. And finally, the man volunteers for work. My message may be summed up thus. If God has purified your life, then look about you for some tremendous need, something worthy of your best work, something worth accomplishing if it cost you your life, and then volunteer for that work. Give your life to it." "Did you hear the sermon this morning?" I asked of Stanton as soon as we were all in the carriage. "The most of it was audible through the window," he replied. "I thought it well to look to the horses, as one of them appeared unwilling to stand." "I guess that the horses are not so impatient as all that, Mr. White," said Miss Zoe pettishly. "They always have stood while we were in church, and I am sure they would this morning. We, all of us, would have enjoyed the service more if you had been there." "I am very sorry if I have detracted from your pleasure or profit, Miss Zoe. But horses are sometimes like people. They grow impatient at times, and are not always the same." Miss Zoe colored somewhat under the implied rebuke, but the conversation soon drifted to other topics. Mr. Edson began at once to write to the leading educators throughout the South, inquiring about the general status of educational affairs. I accompanied him upon repeated visits to the neighboring towns, where he held several conferences with local politicians. On the Friday following the Sunday we have just mentioned, Mr. Edson announced at the supper table that he had decided upon a course of action. He outlined a plan for visiting several towns within a radius of 50 miles of home, and then, if the need seemed imperative, he would travel extensively through the state, arousing the public to demand certain clearly defined educational reforms. Miss Zoe pouted a little at the thought of losing her father for so long a period. But Miss Irma smiled up at him with a brave, glad light in her eyes. "Father dear," said she, "we are too proud of you to wish you to shut yourself up here on the farm. If duty prompts you to go elsewhere, we cannot put hindrances in your way." "God bless you for your sweet encouragement," said Mr. Edson heartily. The start was arranged for the following Monday. Mr. Edson and I were to go together. End of section 14. Read by James K. White, Chula Vista.